Good afternoon, everyone. For today's webinar, cameras and mics will be shut off. So if you have questions during the talk, please write it in the Q&A tab found at the bottom throughout the session, and we will have the speaker address them after his presentation. So for our speaker, Robert Mino has earned 3 graduate degrees and has worked in biotech, diagnostics, pharmaceuticals, medical devices, and life sciences tools. He's held roles in field sales, marketing, law, operations, business development, economic development, research, life sciences entrepreneur, and more. His experiences will provide our audience with a wide range of information on the opportunities available for those of us in life sciences and engineering. Robert Mino is currently a local economic developer who works with many of the life science companies in our local community. He will use this time to discuss various career paths, what it takes to get into the private sector position, and any other related topics you have questions about. We anticipate that because of his experience, there will be a large volume of questions for his talk, so we'd like to reserve at least the last 20 to 15 minutes for questions for Robert. And with that, I'll hand it over to Robert, and thank you all for your attention, and please remember to submit your questions using the Q&A feature on the bottom.
All right. Well, thank you. And let me get the slides loaded up for everybody. I'm Robert Mino, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today about career opportunities. No more teachers, no more books. I'd first of all like to, I came to the stadium here to connect with everybody. I thought I was presenting live and nobody showed up, so I'm glad I was able to get the Zoom call going. Just kidding. It is kind of an unusual environment to be speaking by internet. I normally have this discussion as an interactive discussion, and certainly I welcome all of your questions. I do work things on the fly, but because of the way the electronics work, everybody trying to talk at the same time, I do appreciate you working through Paula, our moderator today. I have a ton of slides. I'm not going to slide whip you. Most of them are very fast. I borrowed a significant amount of content from the internet. I didn't realize these would be recorded and replayed, but in any case, I'm happy to do so for educational purposes. A little about myself, the 3 graduate degrees mentioned. I'm a lawyer by training as well as an MBA and a master's in medical sciences. I also have a bachelor's in genetics, and I am a registered patent attorney. I'm licensed to practice law in a couple of states. I am currently an affiliate faculty at FAU. I also am the vice president for life sciences at the Business Development Board of Palm Beach County, where I focus just working with life sciences companies. I have had a couple of biotech companies that I've been a part of in my life, and you can see I've been the chapter chair for BioFlorida for a long time. Going through the resume just to tell you some of the backgrounds so you can understand a little bit better about some of the experiences I've had and maybe to help you to frame some questions. I'm on the board of a publicly traded healthcare company, and I'm the current entrepreneur in residence for University of Florida for 2020 in South Florida. Okay, now just to tell you what the Business Development Board is, we focus on a lot of the target industries within Palm Beach County. Specifically, we're trying to grow and diversify our economy to make sure there are jobs available that are beyond just construction and real estate and agriculture, which have been the traditional staples of our county. Although we certainly want to continue to support those industries, we also want to diversify our economy to make sure that we aren't impacted by economic downturns in 1 or 2 small economies, but have a much broader ecosystem. And as you can see, life sciences is one of our target industries. So this is going to be a section of the slide deck where I just sort of talk to you and go through a little bit of advice, and then what I'll do is talk about some careers in life sciences, and then we can focus on some of the local companies, what's around. So first of all, I wanted to say you aren't a PhD, you have a PhD. I started off in the PhD program, so I was a quitter. I'm the first person to admit it. It wasn't because I was unhappy, but it was because I was in the throes of a biotech company. I, as an undergrad, and some friends started a biotech company a long time ago in the 90s. And we were fortunate enough to get Mark McGwire, the baseball player, to invest in our company when he was the famous baseball player still. And next thing you know, we've got this great company going. I'm in grad school at University of Florida, and I thought I needed some business experience, so I go and sign up for an MBA, and I get my MBA, and all my classmates graduate with these great jobs, and I've been in grad school for 3 years with my PhD, and said, man, I need to keep going with this biotech company. I need to go work. So I left with a terminal master's. And but one of the things that I realized in the PhD learning and education I have is the differences between what a PhD is and what a PhD means. So PhD teaches you to think creatively, deductively, and objectively. It's really, truly unmatched training. And I'm going to share the Karate Kid analogy, which Paula assures me is still a viable current reference. But essentially, this young man is told, hey, learn to sand the floor, paint the fence, and he gets these skills, but then he realizes those skills can be transferred to do something else, i.e. win a karate tournament. Now, in your life, I want to make sure that you understand that every one of your experiences you have isn't just about the technique itself. When you learn to run an LCMS, it's not just that you know how to run an LCMS. You understand troubleshooting. You understand to think and reason how we're separating and what we're really looking at and setting up the experiment and truly understanding the creativity that goes along with the scientific hypothesis-driven study principles that you learn as a PhD. And so just to give you my background as a lawyer, lawyers think about the world on risk mitigation, right? So law degree teaches people to think why the world works like it does. An MBA teaches people to understand how business works the way it does. A very technical degree of this is how accounting works, this is how economics works. And the science degree really is that creative degree to think about how things could work and how things should work and what we might understand our world in a much different way. So they're very different ways of thinking. And I want you to carry that with you if you get anything from this lecture, that the PhD is great training and you just didn't work in Dr. Jones's lab. You gained a way of thinking about the world that will carry with you no matter what career you decide to embark upon. So you spend a lot of time in your lifetime at your job. You go to the job, somebody tells you to be there, you're there for as many hours as they need to be there, you leave, you're doing it now, you realize that you spend a lot of time at work. You think about work when you're not at work. You're at home talking to your friends about work, you hang out with friends from work. So what you do is actually important. And make sure that you can find the best nexus of something you actually enjoy to something that will pay you to be able to support your lifestyle and something that you're good at doing. And if you can find those nexus, then you'll be very happy in life because you spend so much time associated with your job. You'll no longer worry about work-life balance. You'll worry about what's called work-life integration, where your life and your job become seamlessly integrated because you're happy doing both. So just remember that if you take anything away. Also remember that you're not locked into a career. The average person will change their career 5 to 7 times. I did it a number of times. Paula went through and talked about the number of careers that I've had, and I can certainly believe that I'll probably exceed 7 careers, but I learned something from every one of those. So life is dynamic and your career is dynamic. Don't feel like you're pigeonholed into any one career choice you make. Try something. See if you like it. If you like it, you'll be happy. If you don't like it, you can always try something else. And remember that these are building blocks. When you get experience in a career, you learn something and you'll carry it to the next career. I started off as a scientist. Then I became a lawyer. And it allowed me to become a patent attorney. Most lawyers have a poli-sci undergrad or some other kind of a literature degree. They don't have the scientific background, and they can't become patent attorneys because they don't have that science background. So it's 1 + 1 = 3 a lot of times. And just remember that. The experiences you get in one job will help you in another. So think about life as a series of experiences and not as a series of jobs. So let's talk about jobs. This is a completely stolen, borrowed slide from the internet that talks about the number of different jobs that are out there in the sciences. And as you can look through this list, you've probably seen all of these jobs and just didn't realize that every one of these jobs is somebody with a scientific degree. So I'm going to freeze here for a second just to give everybody an opportunity to look through this list. And you can see that there are a plethora of different job types out there. And this is just a small list. So for instance, when you see marketing, there's strategic marketing and tactical marketing and there are a ton of different jobs within each of these subsets. And so the three main career paths for scientists typically are academia, government, or industry. And we're not going to talk about academia because everybody on your side of the call knows more about that than I do, despite the fact that I have 4 college degrees. I never went through the academic route. So I took this study off of the internet that somebody conducted talking about what it is that PhD students want in different areas to do when they graduate. And you can see the different percentages, but essentially the first 2 bars on the left of each area are the faculty teaching and faculty research route. So if I look at the bio life sciences category in the far left, apparently almost 90%, if you will, or of you would be, well, this is not additive, but to the point of a large number of you would love to be scientists and faculty members in academia. But what you actually do when you graduate is you either become a postdoc or you work in biotech pharma more than 50% of the time. And if you look through this, only 14% go into a tenure track teaching position. From Brandeis University, which I borrowed their slide, but I'm sure FAU probably has a similar ratio here. And the point is that you may think what you want to do now because you haven't been exposed to other things, but once you're actually looking for a job, you may find a different career path. And I want to help you to figure out what that path should be. So let's talk about this. Everybody here in this call understands what this is, but I want to go through it really quickly because it's important. Basic science and research is what happens at the university. Then the translational research side, we all know, is taking those ideas and actually starting to formulate how do we apply those. The scale-up side is completely different. That side, we are going to scale up in clinical trials. We all hear about it in academia, maybe we talk about it, but really that's where you truly have the focus on doing things from the industry side. And then obviously there's a whole commercial world afterwards. We're only going to talk about the green boxes on the right-hand side, not the basic research side of the world. We have other speakers for that. So I'm going to talk about these. Now, I want to point out something that's very interesting in this continuum. This is a highly scientific graph at the bottom that shows you the inventive research side goes down as you go from basic research to commercial launch, and the need to follow directions goes up on the right-hand side. This is the #1 thing that I find becomes a challenge for students when they try to leave academia to go into industry. So I want to point this out. Following directions is extremely important. And I don't mean yes, sir, no, ma'am, following those kind of directions. I mean, in the CGMP environment, when we're going to run a test, we need to know exactly what directions are. We're going to follow those directions. We're going to document we follow those directions, and we're going to know what answer we expect to have before we get it, and we're going to go there. Let me give you 2 examples. So Fleming, when he discovered penicillin, actually was studying something completely unrelated. He had some bacteria. All of a sudden he's in England, and 6 weeks the holiday comes up, and he throws the plates in the corner of his lab and goes on holiday for 6 weeks, figures he'll clean it up later. He comes back, he finds out some of the bacteria didn't grow around some of the fungus. Very interesting. He shifts the entire research of his laboratory and starts studying this, and he discovers penicillin and saves hundreds of millions of lives. That's phenomenal. That's called basic research. But he was able to do that because the basic research process allows you to truly explore our world in a way that you can't in any other type of field. On the flip side of that, if you were to try to do that in industry, you'd have a lot of problems just leaving plates in the corner of your laboratory in a pharmaceutical environment. I will say that when I was general counsel for one of the local pharma companies, we had some interns from a university which will remain nameless. And the 2 interns had a protocol they were supposed to be following in the R&D lab. At least it was not on actual pharmaceutical samples, but it said shake at 37 degrees for 1 hour. Well, they were very hungry, didn't want to miss lunch, so they stuck the 2 microfuge tubes in their back pockets and walked to lunch. They said, we're 37 degrees and we were shaking the whole time. We never sat down. So we followed the directions, and we had to let them go early in their internship, because if that's the point where you are in a CGMP environment, you cannot work in a CGMP environment. So understanding your own personality and whether you are a person who creates and explores, or somebody who likes to know exactly what you have to do, and the only time you're going to do some interesting research is when you find out that something went wrong. Those are 2 different personalities, but it's very important to know in advance before you go into a manufacturing or other type of CGMP environment. So this is that CGMP, GLP, CLIA stuff. Now I want to point out this. If you're going to try to go to industry, one of the number one things that I see from academic resumes is that the academic students typically don't understand what these three acronyms are. Write them down, read about them, even on Wikipedia, before you apply to any industry jobs. If you're going to go into the pharmaceutical industry, the medical device industry, you're going to go into any kind of testing lab, you need to understand not only what these acronyms stand for, you need to understand what they mean, how the governance works, and read a little bit about them. Understand the differences between basic science and how things actually become commercial. And you'll be so far ahead of the peers who didn't do that. Because this is a key importance, especially in South Florida, where we don't have large training programs at some of the pharmaceutical, like they do in some of the pharmaceutical companies and some of the major hubs. You really truly will have to be able to somewhat self-learn some of this. Now, FAU is an amazing program in pharmaceutics where they're offering some education in CGMP, which is phenomenal. It's great that the students have that exposure. And I think those students have found a lot of success as a result of that. And we actually have some of the other academic institutions in the area that have sent their students to come to learn and audit the courses for that reason. But even if you're not in that program, just taking the time to learn about this will really help you in your career if you choose to go into pharmaceutical, or even if you decide to stay in basic research or translational research. To understand what will happen downstream will tremendously impact your ability to be successful. Okay, so I talked about a nexus between making money and being happy. Just to know, it's not rocket science. Go to departmentoflabor.gov and you can look at what average wages are across any type of career. They have literally thousands and thousands of jobs in every subspecialty, and they can tell you where things are. There are tons of tables. You're scientists. You can figure out how to find the information and then say, okay, what is the average wage of a particular job in a particular region? Or you can go to salary.com. It's not as scientific. It's like the Wikipedia of salaries, but you can certainly go there and see at least some information, generally speaking, to give you some idea whether you can support your lifestyle with a certain decision on type of jobs. Okay, so with this is my other advice that I'm going to provide. How to write a resume. Paula, do we need to stop here for any questions?
I think we can keep going, and we'll go ahead and see if there's any lingering resume questions at the end of your talk.
Wonderful. Okay, so this is very important. Now, when I graduated from grad school and I had so many degrees and I had done this great research and I was so wonderful, I got the badge and I got the tassel and I'm ready to go. And I wrote this 4-page resume and I sent it out to everybody under the sun on the internet. And for 3 months, I got rejected. And finally, I got a job through a connection. And the hiring manager said, you know, if you didn't have that contact, I'm not sure we would have hired you. Your resume was a hot mess. And I said, wow. And so to understand better, I never had to write a resume after that. That was, you know, I just had job after job given to me, but the very first job is the most difficult one to get, right? So you want to make sure that you have a resume that makes sense. First thing you need to do is find what job you want. You don't have to have just one resume. If somebody has just one resume, they probably either are very focused on the type of job they want, which most of us don't know really what we want to do, or two, they haven't given the time they need to have this document that is the sales document for you. Think about your own personal career as your own business, and you have to take care of your business, and this is the #1 advertisement for your business. So you find the job you want. This is the process. These 4 steps. If you do this, you'll be tremendously ahead of your peers. Find the job you want. Look at the list of requirements for that job. Okay? I'm not saying apply to it, but you go on the internet and you find, you know, pharmaceutical company X has a job in quality control and it requires these 5 things. Then the next company has these 5 things and these 5 things and this 6 things. You write them all down, and then you think about how your experience that you've gotten at FAU will help you to meet the needs or the requirements of that job description, and then draft a resume appropriately to that, okay? Your resume should not be an opus. A CV and a resume are completely different. I got a resume from somebody who was 26 years old that had 32 pages on their resume. And I can't tell you what was on the the 29 pages beyond the first couple I looked at, when I realized it was that long, there was no way I was going to read it. And so HR people are definitely not going to read your 3-page resume, your 4-page resume. Certainly, you do not have to have a page per year of your life. And as I go back to that, you need to be concise. And I'm going to talk about in the next slide how you would do that. But just knowing HR won't read it all. So draft a resume demonstrating your experiences and not your job, and your experiences and skills that the company will be able to rely upon if they hire you to fill a role. Okay? Remember, you're selling your services and they want to make sure that you have the skills necessary to fill their needs. Also, you can look at career tracks. Again, skills are additive. So if you ultimately want to become a QA QC manager and you have to start as an auditor, then look at that. See how other people on LinkedIn have gone through their careers to get to where they want to be or where they are now, and like in a job that you want to have. Look and see their progression, and then make sure that you can figure out how you get the skills to follow the same or similar type of progression. Again, you're scientists. You study this. Think about yourself as a science project and how you would get to the conclusion. Okay, resume tip number 2. Again, what skills can you bring to the job? I get resumes that say, I worked in Dr. Jones's lab studying ladybugs, counting the number of ladybugs and different types of grasses. That will not help me if I'm in a pharmaceutical company to understand how you can help me. Dr. Jones may be a Nobel laureate. I don't know who Dr. Jones is. And I don't really know if ladybugs will help. But if you look on the right-hand side, you can put it as a statistical analysis. Well, okay, I understand. You actually know how to do linear regression modeling. That is one of the skill sets required for this QA job. So then we understand a little bit better about your skill set and how it would apply to this job. You can see the second one, the same thing, right? Don't just say you ran a machine in a lab. At least talk about how you actively were working. You performed some experiments. What you did, you were looking for trace analytes. That way, when you're applying for a forensic position and they're trying to figure out if there is, somebody had drugs in their system or is the water purification, like an environmental scientist, and they want to be able to see if there's some trace elements in the water of contamination, of a metal contamination. You can say, I have that experience. So again, thinking about the experience that they need somebody to have and you showing that you have it. I don't, maybe Dr. Jones's name shouldn't even be in your resume, but certainly the skills need to be. Okay, resume tip number 3. And I just blatantly stole this from somebody on the internet who was talking to NPR, but it's true. 70 to 80% of jobs are not published. So if your whole goal is to look on Indeed every morning to see what jobs are out there, you're missing 80% of the targets, right? So your sensitivity, if you will, is terrible. If you were developing a test, your sensitivity is only 20%. You need to be better than that. What you need to do is figure out what it is you want to do, what companies are offering that type of a job, right? Then you'll go through and make connections to people like myself, go to networking events, do whatever you need to do, find connections that you have now that are connected to people in that company, and ask for an introduction for a specific purpose. Don't call somebody up and say, hey, can you introduce me to pharmaceutical company A? Can you introduce me to Pfizer? Say instead, can you introduce me to Pfizer? Pfizer has a specific position open in King of Prussia for a QA specialist. This is the job title, and I see that you're connected to the hiring manager or somebody in that company. Can you make the introduction to that person for that purpose? They don't want to dream up why they have to make the introduction, but everybody is happy to help somebody who's trying to get a job because we've all been there. Just give us the specific purpose so that we all agree what that purpose is. It really, really hurts people when they try to make an introduction and then the introductee says, hey, this was a completely different topic. So again, narrowing it down. And, again, apply to the job posting as the last resort. You may have to apply to a publicly posted job after, but by the time it's already been posted, most of the time they already know who they're going to hire. Okay. Any questions on resumes? Paula, we good?
Yep, all good to keep going.
All right, now we're going to talk about the local ecosystem. We're buzzing through the slides to make sure we have plenty of time for Q&A. So, I'm going to give you some fun facts. First of all, as you probably know, Palm Beach County and generally in Florida, and generally in Florida, science is a male and female balanced field, right? So life sciences are balanced between the genders. The stereotypes there and maybe some of the other areas that it might be different than that aren't there anymore. So don't see anything as a glass ceiling, or don't see anything in that area. Look at what you want, because I really believe that has gone away in most of the areas of Florida's sciences, and you can see the numbers reflect that in Palm Beach County for sure. Florida is a top 10 state for the number of life sciences companies based on the number of industry establishments from the FDA. And we're also in the top 10 for academic research and development in the state of Florida. We're also in the top 10 for the number of patents in the country. And we're in the top 20 for venture capital investments. On the right-hand side, we are the arguably 10th largest MSA as far as South Florida of the biotechs of MSAs in the state. I'm sorry, somebody has been sending me text messages on the other side here of this computer. I apologize. We are the 12th largest biotech hub in the country. Now, these are different kind of ways to break things down. Certainly, you can see that Chapel Hill, Durham Chapel Hill, 2 steps above us, doesn't include Raleigh for some reason. They separated it out even though they're 12 miles apart. So they would probably move up. And some people would put San Jose and San Francisco together because they're only an hour apart, just like Miami would be to West Palm Beach. So there's a little bit of flexibility in these, but generally speaking, we're about 10th to 12th largest biotech hub in the country, is where you are in the center of at FAU. Now with that, one of the things that you are, what's great for everybody on this call is life sciences is on fire. If you look on the upper left-hand side, there have been 20% of all U.S. merger and acquisitions were in the life sciences at one point, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of money going into life sciences. If you look on the bottom left-hand side, the Dow Jones Medical Equipment Index was on fire before COVID. And so the amount of money pouring into biotech investments, medical device investments, and pharmaceutical investments right now is tremendous. And after COVID, we expect this to be one of the industries that has even more tremendous growth as the country tries to repatriate the API supply, that's active pharmaceutical ingredient supply, and tries to repatriate PPE, which we all know what that means now. So as the country works toward those types of goals, we'll start to see a lot more opportunities, grants, financings, et cetera, into that type of field, which will be tremendous for everybody on this call. Now, one of the things that you hear, and it's absolutely true, why are most of the startups in California, New York, and Massachusetts? We saw it in the last slide based on the number of companies and jobs that are there. But if you look at the bottom side, you can see why it's there. It's the venture capital investment by state. If you look and you see California is roughly twice the size of Florida by number of actual citizens, but roughly 30 times the size of the amount of venture capital investment. And so we have a big gap there, but we're still in the top 5. So, don't count Florida out. You're at a great opportunity because Florida will continue to grow. My normal usual slide after this would be the one talking about taxes and net migration and some of those types of things that economic developers talk about. But in that, just to say Florida is growing, those other places have tremendous tax burdens, tremendous other hurdles to overcome, and companies are moving here. They're moving here really quickly, and you're already here. Okay, any questions, Paula, before I move into what's locally here?
Thanks for stopping, but I think we can go ahead and keep going.
Okay. So this slide, if it was actually somehow transferred on Zoom properly, would show you what we've had from year to year to year transferring up. The $51,000 number was the average Palm Beach County wage in 2016. And above that was $81,000 for life sciences. You can't see that, but you can see on the bottom right-hand side that the 2019 wage for life sciences in Palm Beach County, the average wage is $91,312. If you do the math on that, you can see that that is a $700 million economic impact to our county across the 7,600 jobs that are here. What that means to you guys that the average job in life sciences in Palm Beach County across those 7,600 jobs that we're talking about is $91,000. So there are a lot of good paying, solid jobs in Palm Beach County. So this slide normally says pharmaceuticals. I'm not sure why it's not showing up, but we're going to talk about some of the pharma companies and hopefully they will show up. Okay, good. So I'm going to go through some of the more prominent life sciences companies that are in our community. Happy to address any of them. Just want to talk about some of the anchors. There are many more. There are over 700 companies registered as life sciences within Palm Beach County of various types. There are actually a lot more than that if you want to be broader and think about all the types of uses, from the mosquito control boards where they're doing molecular biology and environmental sciences testing water, to your pharmaceutical medical devices. I'm just going to focus on the medical devices, pharmaceuticals, and biotech. But again, there are a ton of companies out there beyond the 700, and we're going to focus on some of the salient ones. There in Boca is ADMA Biologics. ADMA has 3 approved drug products. They're isolating contents from plasma of healthy people to provide those missing components for people who are in need of those, who may be immune compromised for some reason. I know I'm talking to scientists, but I also want to make sure that I talk at the basic level when I talk to these, because I don't know everybody's background. We may certainly have some engineers, or we have some other groups that may not want to talk about IgG and IgM immunology, so I'm going to be very basic on this. Certainly don't crucify me for that. Therapeutics MD is another company in Boca. It's a women's health company. Therapeutics MD is the #1 provider nationally of prenatal vitamins and for prescription. They also have some women's health products for different stages of women's lives and focus on women's health across the continuum of women's life. A lot of the jobs that are located in Palm Beach County from this company are your QA, your regulatory, your sales, your marketing, all the headquarters jobs. So whereas ADMA is actually doing manufacturing and research in our community, Therapeutics MD is directing research and manufacturing from our community, but is doing all the other critical core functions. And this was a company started in our community, that formulated its products in our community, that grew in our community and commercialized from our community. So it's been longstanding, and it's a great opportunity for those commercial roles. Strides Pharmaceutical is a generic pharmaceutical company. It's across the globe. The Riviera Beach soft gel manufacturing facility is their first CGMP FDA soft gel manufacturing facility in the United States. They're going to be bringing across 9 ANDAs, as they're called, and they're going to be trying to build. They've got a couple hundred employees in Riviera Beach, and this is a great opportunity in the generics world to get your foot in the door. They're not normally as high-paying jobs in the generic world as they are in the innovator world, but they're great opportunities for you to get in the door and to get opportunities to get the experience you need in those types of roles where you're continuously working on a QA, QC, manufacturing, whatever your career path might be. And for a company like that, when they're bringing in the ANDAs, they also have to do some of the R&D necessary to bring that in. Woodfield Distribution in Boca as well. I point out that it's not just about companies that are in the life sciences, but companies like Woodfield, which does distribution of CGMP products, they're actually distributing across the U.S. and across the world. Their headquarters is in Boca, and they do packaging, filling, logistics, support, FDA, DEA, and so they certainly need people with a technical background to understand storage conditions, understand processing, regulatory, compliance, a lot of different factors that are there, and might be a good opportunity to get some experience. And even though I have somebody driving a forklift there, it's not just about that. It's about a lot of other opportunities. And then Gift of Life. Some of you are celebrity stalkers. You have Kim Kardashian and Kristen Bell, Anna from Frozen. So if you look at them, they're in Boca as well. They have a brand new research lab they're building. They have an apheresis center. They're trying to cure blood cancer. It's a fantastic charity, and they do work with scientists all the time to try to build a quality system for cancer patients. So they ask for people to donate swabs. You basically swab your mouth, you send it in, they do a DNA sequence, put you in a database, and if you happen to be a match for somebody who's in need with blood cancer, now they can do a draw from their Boca location, and they can get those stem cells out of the blood to help these people. And it's a fantastic program, and I highly recommend everybody here swab if they can to donate, unless you don't want your DNA to be out there, but they assure us that they keep it in their own database and support that, but there might also be an opportunity for careers. Okay, medical devices. So medical devices aren't that exciting, except for if you're missing some teeth and you really needed some, then artificial teeth is actually something important to you if you can't eat otherwise, right? But we're very blessed to have the headquarters for Zimmer Biomet, which is a global company's dental implants headquarters. And they're doing their manufacturing here. They're designing the next generation. They're doing a lot of science. Their engineers partner with some of the rocket scientists and the aerospace engineering to come up with new alloys to make sure that they could get implants that would last longer, that would have more durability, chemistries that would look natural, that won't erode. So really a lot of great science going on in the medical devices world there. And it's a very large company in our community. I think it has over 750 employees in Palm Beach Gardens alone. Great opportunity to get into the quality systems and some of the areas. You may not think about it if you're a neuroscience researcher, say, oh, well, this doesn't apply to me. It absolutely does, because as they move on to some of these things, that that nerve part of it, that feeling that there's a lot that's there, and what, again, the scientific process that you learn as a PhD doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in neuroscience for the rest of your life. It means that you learn how to be a scientist, and you learn how to think like a scientist, and you can do a lot of different scientific research studies that are beyond just that. So great opportunities there. Johnson & Johnson's world headquarters for their power tools division. Again, you want a doctor to have something that's working under CGMP when they do surgeries. And this is a drill that can drill through the skull and those types of things. They're doing manufacturing here. They've got scientists and researchers working on the next generation of power tools and how to make them work more efficiently for all types of surgeries. Again, it's about 350, 400 employees in Palm Beach Gardens. And you also have some mid-sized companies like Integrity Implants, which has about 50 employees and working on spinal implants, and some R&D related to their Fluorhawk on the left-hand side. It's the first device that goes between discs that does both height, width, and lordosis stretching. So actually this curvature of the spine, something that is novel, and they did that inventiveness here in Palm Beach County, and those are types of companies you might be able to work with if you're in that space. If you're materials engineering or, again, on the science side. Tecomet, just your very basic hip, knee, and shoulder replacement type companies manufacturing these in Palm Beach County. And even Flow Spines, startup companies down in Boca at Research Park. They're making custom types of alloys and screws that are innovative, and they can make them in such a way that they're cost effective. So applying the scientific principles to create something new in an industry that's been around for quite a while. Cineo is not exciting. They're making catheters, but they actually did a lot of designing to make catheters more effective. Cutting tools are more effective. They have a significant number of setups to make processing for all types of plastic extrusion products in the CGMP space, from lines and PICC lines and all that. And so, again, they really need a lot of scientists in that type of role as well, and engineers. If you're a scientific-minded engineer, this cluster up here in Riviera Beach and Palm Beach Gardens has tremendous opportunity for you. And I always like to throw in companies like BioTools. Dr. Decor, who's speaking, I saw a couple weeks from now. She is an entrepreneur in her own right, been in our community for 20 years. She's developed several pieces of equipment. They're in all the major pharmaceutical companies. Looking at something like chirality, she found what she loves. She loves chiral science. This is truly somebody who loves chiral science. And she took her love and she developed equipment to look at it when she knew there was a need. And she's been doing it for 20 years. So, that's somebody who loves what she does and has been successful in it. Quantachrome Systems, it's another one of these device companies, but it's an opportunity for scientists. They actually hire a tremendous number of scientists. As you can see on the bottom side, they're looking for impurities and porosity and such in their equipment monitoring. And innovating new ways to do that is always something that a company like this needs to do. Okay, beyond that, biotech. I know biotech is more exciting, and so we'll go through that. Akron Biotech in Boca always needs scientists. It's a pure scientific type company. It's run by a scientist, was founded by a scientist. They're doing CGMP products, they're doing stem cells, they're doing aseptic finish, manufacturing. They're growing like crazy. They've got their second or third manufacturing location. Great company to work for, great people. Exuma Biotech. Exuma Biotech has been growing quite a bit. Greg Frost, the co-founder of Halozyme, had retired in Palm Beach County, got bored of it, I think, went out there and started a great company called F1 Oncology. And after mergers, acquisitions, they're now Exuma Biotech. They've got some fantastic technology towards same-day CAR T therapy, which will revolutionize cancer research. Expansion Therapeutics, I think we've all heard of because they raised $55 million 2 years ago. They're in Jupiter. I think, again, Jupiter is kind of that biotech cluster there. He's looking at small molecules to approach RNAs for diseases in certain disease targets from RNA, looking at tertiary structure and how do you mold those small molecules to that. We have Dyadic is headquartered in Jupiter. They're making industrial enzymes. We have AlphaZymes, one of the startups in Jupiter that's also making industrial enzymes focused on DNA manufacturing enzymes. The founder of this company was highly successful in 2 other companies that he's been a part of before. And, they wanted me specifically to put on this list that they are hiring. So as you can see, 3 of the positions they have open right now, they are in a rapid growth mode, and they were looking for people on this call to apply to jobs that they have open today. So they asked me to tell you that. And there's some list of the many jobs. And by the way, as I said before, only 20% of jobs are posted. So if you think there's a different job that you could do and you could help them with, there's no reason not to reach out. XFAX, another one of these Jupiter biotech companies, they raised $56 million doing a herpes vaccine, exciting type of research, and they're going to be growing in our community. There's some great companies like this that are here. So just to know that that's there. Scripps spinoff Immune, they're working on an HIV vaccine. As you can see, they got the CCR5 mimic domain on artificial antibody that would allow basically the immune system to recognize some of the rapidly changing HIV particles and ultimately help you to finally get rid of this through an AAV-mediated vector. And so I think, again, exciting science going on. They're right across the street from the beach. You could have lunch at the beach if you're working for a company like this, and a lot going on there. We can go through, again, there's translational research in town. There's also a lot of exciting technologies that are not in the lab. Modernizing Medicine in Boca has been rated one of the best places to work in the United States for a number of years. They've had a few times they've had rankings on that, and certainly they're always in the top 10 in Florida. Over 1,000 employees. They're working on an EMR system, electronic medical record system, but in that, they need computer scientists. They need people who can understand statistics and can speak the language and work through. It's not just about being computer programmers. It's about people who actually can think through things on artificial intelligence and think, how do you use this data and monetize this massive amount of extremely valuable data on the back end to provide services for physicians to keep ahead of the competition, to make the platform run better, but also to make it more user-friendly. And scientists like those on the call can help to address some of those. So there's a lot of opportunities out there in our community. With that, I'll pause for a Paula break. Paula, do I need to keep going and talking about sort of where we are in the ecosystem? I think we're down to about 3 or 4 slides left.
I think, yeah, if we want to go ahead and keep going, we've definitely got some questions piling up for you, but if we can cut it down to maybe 5 minutes or so, we can definitely get to some of the questions.
Okay, so really briefly, we're going through, we're basically trying to build the academic research all the way through clusters we talked about, so the bench to bedside research. If you were to look at it 3 years ago, when I started on this project, the only incubator space in the entirety of Palm Beach County was at FAU in Jupiter. The CMBB lab had graciously allowed some startup companies to work there. And now we're really working through and we're creating more incubator space. Tech Runway is focusing north. And I'm not saying it's by me, by the way, it's a community effort. FAU is working north. A new wet lab space is opened up in Jupiter. The Beacon Pharmaceutical project we brought in. And we're really working with some of the hospitals to do a lot more work down the chain. So on the 20th anniversary of Jupiter event, you can see your President Kelly and your Vice President of Research, Dr. Flynn, together with the Beacon Pharmaceutical Group. They came in from New York. They're looking to build a 140,000 square foot research facility in Jupiter. It'll have research, it'll have manufacturing, it'll be for a lot of startup companies. And should this project be successful, which we believe it will be, and should it be successful, then this will be the nucleus around which the Jupiter cluster will just exponentially grow. And so I think, again, we're focused on these types of projects. We believe that they can be very successful, and this is something we've been working on. I won't go through the list of things we've had, but we've had 1,200 new jobs announced to date in the life sciences this the last 6 months. We've got about 30 projects in the pipeline now, various different companies we work with. We've got an exciting announcement coming for a national headquarters with 31 locations across the country that'll be here in Palm Beach County, and that's the thank you. If you'd like to connect with me, I have a LinkedIn profile, and anybody who reaches out and says, hey, I saw your call, I'm happy to connect. All right.
Thank you so much, Robert, for such an informative talk. We have a lot of questions from our audience.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and start us off with a personal question. You had mentioned that it's important to enjoy the work that you do. Was there anything in common with all of your jobs or career choices that you love doing? Was it really just as simple as staying engaged in science?
I think, sometimes you do and sometimes you do some things for the right reasons. I started off, like I said, I had a biotech company. In the biotech company, I realized I didn't know anything about business. I was trying to raise money, and with business, I don't know anything about it, so I'll get an MBA. You kind of do those types of wanderings around a little bit, but then in that, I went into a sales career. And in sales, I was very successful in sales and got drafted into marketing because I had to teach other salespeople how to become good salespeople. And next thing you know, in marketing, I worked with all of our patent attorneys because we were trying to figure out how to bring in new technologies. So I said, well, it'd be pretty cool to do that. While I was becoming a patent attorney, I got myself into another biotech company situation. And so, I transitioned to going corporate counsel as opposed to focusing on intellectual property law. It's sometimes a wandering, but sometimes it's finding out what you enjoy and what you like to do. And in the economic development world, I came into this role specifically to try to help improve the local life sciences economy because I love working as an in-house counsel. I love working with biotech companies, and I want more of them here for everybody on this call, including myself.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Robert. For our first audience question, do you have suggestions on what additional activities besides the standard research that someone interested in going into industry could pursue during their postdoc or graduate school in order to make their CV resume more attractive to pharma or the biochemistry industry?
Absolutely. So first of all, learn the lingo. Secondly, go to networking events. South Florida, Life Sciences South Florida, in the pre-COVID world had events all the time. I'm thinking events will come back, but make sure that you meet people. And when you go to these events, don't just wander around, shake hands, or hide in the corner and drink a glass of wine. Print a business card. There's no reason your business card can't say postdoc, FAU, and hand it out and make connections. Get on LinkedIn, connect to people. And then one day when you find out that you want to work at ADMA, then you can look on LinkedIn and say, wow, the job that I want hiring manager happens to be connected to the person I met at the life sciences event. And all of a sudden, you have an opportunity to get in the door to your dream job because you've made the connections in advance. So you have to plant seeds before you can harvest. So those are the types of things I say. Learn the lingo to be prepared, and then meet people to be prepared so that when you have the opportunity, you're prepared. Some people will tell you internships, and certainly if you can get them, you do them. But you know what? You're still working in a real job. And so it's very difficult to tell your PI, hey, I know you're paying me right now to be a postdoc, but somehow I'm going to quit for 3 months. I'm going to go do an internship as a postdoc. That's not really a viable option for you. So do the things that you need to do to be prepared, and assume that this job that you have now is your internship, and make sure the experiences that you're getting in this job are prerequisites for the type of role that you want later on.
Wonderful advice. Thank you so much. I think one of the next questions has to do with something that we're told pretty frequently as individuals who are outside of the industry. And it's that projects can be canceled from one day to the next depending on funding. So how do you adjust to such change, and has that really been your experience?
So yes, that does happen. I think a lot of times you've had these massive boom bust cycles in large companies, and a lot of, when those large companies lay off people, typically those people wind up going to another company that's in a boom cycle. And don't take it as a personal rejection if you're part of something like that. Take it as you got some experiences, now you have new opportunities. That being said, that's why you build your network, and that's why you build your experiences. You've chosen to be in this industry. You can also become an entrepreneur like Rena Decor, who's going to speak to you in 2 weeks. And you could start your own company and make sure that you pursue your own goals. Or a lot of times that's in the manufacturing side. That's not in the bread and butter types of roles. If you were to pursue roles where you're in QC, QA, the company might lay off certain parts of the project, but they're not going to lay off some of the core talent they need on regulatory affairs. It's also part of that is industry segment specific.
Very interesting. I feel like there's a lot that we can learn about the whole process, and hopefully by going through these career webinars, we're able to kind of gather more information. So I appreciate your insight into that. Another question is regarding looking for positions. And as you mentioned, most of the positions available are not going to be posted. How do you recommend looking and applying for a position in the industry? Should one send a resume to companies that they're interested in as opposed to a specific position, and hope that there's a good fit for them in that company? And do the companies usually work with any recruiting agencies to help out?
Yeah, so recruiting agencies are typically used on two ends of the spectrum, the early end of the spectrum and on the later end of the spectrum. I mean, so for brand new hires or for high-end positions, and recruiters cost money. So the company would rather hire somebody not through a recruiter. Right? The recruiter is going to take 15 to 20% of your annual salary as a finder's fee to find you. So if the company has to pay you $50,000, and then they got to pay somebody else 20% on top of that, and they got to pay them $10,000. You going through a recruiter are less attractive than somebody not going through a recruiter. You might actually be able to get a better deal because they don't have to pay the recruiter for you. So certainly you want to go to the company direct if you can. And I'm not saying that that's always possible, but and again, if you know what company you want, what type of role you want, then you can reach out to your network who might have connections in that company and say, I'm specifically looking for a QA, QC role. The other thing you can do, it's called the helpless Hannah, and I don't know who came up with that term, but it's a Ben Franklin approach. I've heard it called as well, where if you go out and you ask somebody for help, people want to help. Just reach out to somebody who is in, let's say you want to become a QA manager at a biotech company, and you say, well, I see that somebody is in that role now in a company that I want to be. Reach out to them and say, hey, I would love to be in a role like yours in the company you work for. I love ADMA because I truly believe in helping people with immune deficiencies. And I think QA would be great because it really, I'm an analytical person and I like to focus on numbers and make sure that every decimal place is in the right place. And it really fits how do I get to where you are, right? What can I do to get to that? Can you spare 10 minutes? Don't take up 2 hours of their time. You spend 10 minutes or 15 minutes just coaching me in how I can get one day to be in that role. And most people will say, yeah, I have 10 minutes for somebody who is new in their career that I can give some advice to. And then if you bond with them, if you connect, there's an opportunity for maybe that person might have a role or might say, you know what, we actually could use somebody. We were talking about maybe in the spring, but we need somebody today. And so those are opportunities to connect in that way.
Wonderful. Along that same line, you're mentioning certain positions with a lot of acronyms. So it seems, hopefully our audience is picking up that it's very important to know the lingo. Yes. But what are the most common positions that are typically filled in industry by PhDs? Do you have common roles or just things that you've seen in your experiences?
Yeah, so the common roles in industry that you would see on the pharmaceutical side, obviously researcher, research scientist, formulators do quite well. When I talk about QC, I talk about quality control. Those are the people that actually do the testing to make sure that the product meets the specifications that it has to meet in order to get out the door. And so those are the people that are running the equipment, running your mass specs in the laboratory, doing those types of tests. Those are almost always PhDs in those roles. They're leading those positions in the roles for sure. They're PhDs. A lot of times there are some PhDs in the QA, which is quality assurance, but more so in the QC because you have those analytical skills necessary to troubleshoot and figure out what really is happening within the laboratory and with the product. A lot of the process engineers are also PhDs. So those are the people that can actually follow the directions and make sure that everything is cleaned appropriately between cycles. Your regulatory affairs people, sometimes they're PhDs, sometimes they're not, but certainly regulatory affairs professionals who make filings to the FDA with a strong scientific background and good verbal skills do very well in career. They have a lot of great career opportunities. It's not uncommon for a regulatory affairs person with a PhD only a few years out to be making over $200,000 a year. So, again, if you know what you want and you're there, you can see what types of positions have PhDs already, and then see, if the PhD was important to the skill set that was listed for that type of an opening. But yeah.
Awesome. This one is almost a two-part question, but what tips do you have for searching for companies like biotech companies in other areas of Florida? Or maybe we can even make this more specific or more general, just to searching for companies in general.
Sure. So in Florida, I would recommend you look at the BioFlorida database, which tries to list every company that they can find in Florida. You can find that through BioFlorida's website, bioflorida.org. And so the BioFlorida database would be the first place to go there. Nationally, I would say you can look on LinkedIn, or you can go if you're looking for a specific state. So if you're going to look at Massachusetts, go to MassBio. If you're going to New Jersey, look at BioNJ. Look at the state's bioorganization sites, and they typically have a listing of the companies in that region, and go from there. If you're just trying to say, I want to look for a job anywhere in the country, I don't care where it is, that's a completely different approach, because there's no possibility for you to apply for jobs everywhere and to be interested everywhere. So I would go back and say, at least narrow it down to a type of industry. If you know you love neuroscience and you know you love Parkinson's disease research, then focus on the top research in those areas and the groups that are working on that. Go to clinicaltrials.gov and see who's actually doing research and clinical trials on the disease sites you like. That's another way to find companies that are doing that. Oftentimes, clinicaltrials.gov lists a contact person that you can contact at the company doing research on the specific type of disease that you're looking for. So don't, take advantage of government resources that are available for you to find those leads.
Awesome. You mentioned BioFlorida. Do you think that memberships like BioFlorida are useful for networking and finding jobs and those sorts of opportunities?
So Florida Atlantic University maintains a membership with BioFlorida, specifically so that postdocs get the membership rate when they go to attend meetings and conferences and such. And I highly recommend, if you are going to go to those events, make sure that you leverage the fact that you're at FAU, if you're a graduate student or you're a postdoc. And I think BioFlorida is a good type of networking event, because it's normally a high level type of position that's there. There used to be a lot more academic focus. Now it's a lot more industry focus. And you can do that in any states. If you really want to be in Massachusetts, wandering around Cambridge to try to find biotech companies, even though they're literally in every building there, I get it. They all have security guards, and they don't want to let you in because they don't know who you are. But if you go to one of their networking events there, you can meet a dozen companies with the business cards I mentioned while you're there, and make those connections and reach out to those people.
Awesome. That definitely sounds like a resource that our audience should definitely look into.
Mm-hmm.
I will go ahead and say that this will be our last question, and it kind of takes what we've been talking about a little bit further. Our audience member wants to know how you best prepare yourself for the on-site interview. So once you found your job and you're asked to come in for an interview, and the second part is, how does such an interview differ between academia and industry? And if you feel like you have input, even though you might not have interviewed for academia, we welcome your input on that as well. But mostly preparation advice for on-site interviews.
The number one question that you need to be prepared for any job is, why our company? Why do you want to work here? And if the answer to me, if you were asked, if I asked you that question, you said, because I need a job, it sounds humorous, but it's not the best answer for the company. It's not going to get you in the door, right? So we all love to think that that's going to be an answer, but you really need to research and search your own soul and say, hey, I really want to be in this company because of X. I love dental implants. I have a family history of the teeth falling out at 25 years old, or I love the idea of new metal alloys. And this position is such a great opportunity to explore these new metal alloys. And just understanding the company, or say, hey, your company is working on a disease that's important to me. Your culture, I read about your culture, and I love the fact that your culture focuses so much on education. Just something that allows you to connect with them and tell them why it is that this particular job in this particular company is important. Because it costs so much money for a company to invest in you, to train you, to teach you their way, to know where the bathroom is, to know how to use the HR systems, to know who the people are. that by the time they've made that investment in you, they don't want you to leave because you're unhappy, because you actually don't like anything to do with teeth. They want to know that you want to be in that job, in that company. If you sell that you love that company and that job, then that will be the best thing you can do to get that job. And so make sure you're prepared for that answer. Even if you just want a job, lie to yourself in the mirror 1,000 times before you go in there and say why that's the best company under the sun. Okay?
Awesome. Well, that's all the time we have right now for questions. I would like to say that if you're in the audience and you still have a question, be sure to quickly put it in our Q&A. Robert is going to graciously answer most of the lingering questions, and hopefully we will have those put up on our digital resources site for you, where this webinar will also appear. So again, thank you so much, Robert, for sharing your experiences and being with us today. And thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to share. Wow.